But me, your man, Louie T. Welcome to the command post. You know what it is. Post up. Take command. Now, of course, you're my Commander-in-Chief, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. So one of the hottest debates and topics in the Commanders community right now is what head coach to go with. And I think a lot of people are leaning towards the offensive side of the football. There are some out there that would like to see them go defensive-minded head coach, Mike McDonald, or even a Dan Quinn for some people. I think after that Dallas debacle in the playoffs, I think a lot of that is cooled off. But we've heard some defensive names mentioned. Raheem Morris is another one. But I think most of the fan base would like to see Washington go with an offensive-minded head coach, marry that offensive-minded head coach with a young quarterback, and go on from there. Now, the real debate has been which young offensive-minded head coach do you go with? Do you go with Ben Johnson, Lions offensive coordinator, or Texans offensive coordinator, Bobby Slowik? Now, this is a debate that's been raging on for probably the better part of 2 weeks to 2 months, depending on who you talk to, who you ask. I think it's gotten even hotter watching Bobby Slowik do what he's done in the postseason thus far. That was a very impressive performance against the Cleveland Browns. And really, I think him being opened up to a much broader audience. The week prior, having to win to get in against the Indianapolis Colts really was the first exposure to a lot of fans across the nation as to what Bobby Slowik really was doing in Houston. And then following that up with the performance that they had against the Cleveland Browns, one of the top defensive units in the league, just took his star a bit higher and brighter. And so I think there's been a healthy debate. I wanted to bring the two together and give you the tale of the tape between Ben Johnson, a.k.a. Benny J, Bobby Slowik, a.k.a. Bobby Slime. Let's take it to the tail of the tape and see who is the better option for the Washington Commanders. And again, you'll decide. I'm just going to give you the facts. So, tail of the tape reads as such. You've got Ben Johnson, 37 years old, hailing out of North Carolina, attended the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. From 04 to 07 was a preferred walk-on as a quarterback. All right. 12 years of experience in the NFL, 2 as an offensive coordinator. These last 2 years with the Detroit Lions. Does not come from a specific NFL tree. And he has no ties to the current Washington Commanders general manager, Adam Peters. You go to the other side of the tail of the tape, Bobby Slowik, 36 years old, so 1 year younger than that of Ben Johnson. Attended Michigan Tech College, was a wide receiver there from 05 to 09. He has 13 years of NFL experience in the game. Started out as an assistant, helping out the Shanahans. He's been a coordinator 1 year. This is his first year as an offensive coordinator in the NFL and is doing an outstanding job with a rookie quarterback in C.J. Stroud. NFL tree, he graduated proudly from Shanahan University. Shanahan U, shout out to Shanahan U for all of the graduates that are just thriving around the National Football League at this current moment. Shanahan U continuing to pump out only the best in the NFL. Ties to our general manager, Adam Peters. Yes, there is a tie there. They were together. They overlapped in San Francisco for 6 seasons. Bobby Slowik left in 2022, obviously, to pursue the offensive coordinator opportunity with DeMeco Ryans in Houston. So from 2017 to 2022, he was together with Adam Peters in San Francisco. So there is a relationship there. Not that will play a part in the decision-making process, but there is a relationship between Adam Peters and Bobby Slowik. So now we're going to go to one of the most important parts of the tail of the tape. And that, my friends, is the resume. So we start with that of Benny J. My guy, Ben Johnson, Been a tight ends coach 3 times over. First time he was a tight ends coach was at the University of Boston College, or Boston College University. Then he was a tight ends coach for the Miami Dolphins. And then he was the tight ends coach for the Detroit Lions. Wide receiver coach. He's been a wide receiver coach in the NFL with the Miami Dolphins. And an assistant quarterbacks coach. He was that as well for the Miami Dolphins. So then you look at him being a passing game coordinator with the Detroit Lions in 2021. And what's fascinating about this particular stop in his journey was he joined the Detroit Lions staff in 2019. And he worked his way up the food chain. He was there before Dan Campbell even got there. Okay, Campbell did not come on board until 2021. Johnson got there in 2019. When Campbell got there, he kept Ben Johnson on staff because of their relationship going back to the Miami Dolphin days. Okay, so they had a relationship previous in Miami, which is where Ben Johnson really cut his teeth in the NFL. And so he kept him on, but it was in a lesser role. It wasn't as the passing game coordinator. They had issues with the play calling. The Lions fired their offensive coordinator in Dan Campbell's first year, and Campbell took over the play calling, but he made Ben Johnson the passing game coordinator. And from there, the offense took off. The final 6-7 games of the season, including 3 or 4 wins in that stretch. And so that prompted Dan Campbell to then make the executive decision to give him an opportunity to be the offensive coordinator the following year in 2022. The rest is history. He's been the offensive coordinator of the Detroit Lions for each of the last 2 seasons. Ranks in the NFL during those 2 seasons, 3rd in yards per game. So, you know, the NFL's metric for measuring and ranking teams offensively is yards per game. Lions have been 3rd in the league in yards per game. So hence 3rd in the NFL in offense for each of the last 2 seasons under the Ben Johnson offensive coordinator reign. 5th in points per game each of the last 2 seasons under Ben Johnson as well. 26.6 points per game in 2022. That upped to 26.9, so essentially 27 points per game for Ben Johnson, which is a very hardy number in the NFL. So he's been outstanding as the Detroit Lions offensive coordinator for each of the last 2 seasons, with them improving each year, specifically this year, an uptick in points per game. Biggest claim to fame for Ben Johnson right now: revitalized the career of Jared Goff and led wide receiver Amon-Ra St. Brown and rookie tight end Sam Laporta to NFL and franchise records. Now, Amon-Ra St. Brown is also, he's also credited Ben Johnson with helping him set Lions franchise records for the rookie wide receiving record that he set back in 2021 when Johnson took over as the passing game coordinator. So Amon-Ra St. Brown set numerous records this year for the fastest in franchise history to this benchmark in yards and in catches and things of that nature. Sam Laporta had one of the best rookie tight end seasons we've ever seen in the NFL, set all kinds of records in the NFL, most catches by a rookie tight end in NFL history, and also set the Lions franchise records for most catches and yards in a season by a rookie tight end, as well as touchdowns. So, so many different records have been set individually, but also they've done so much work as a unit. And you can see why the tight end position with Sam Laporta in particular has been flourishing under the tutelage of Ben Johnson. He was a tight ends coach 3 times over. Their head coach is a former NFL tight end. So there's a lot of importance and emphasis being placed on that particular position, and you've seen the results there in Detroit. So now we go from Ben Johnson, aka Benny J's resume, to that of Bobby Slowik. All right, Bobby Slime. So defensive and offensive assistant. So what's interesting here is Mike Shanahan back in 2011 which is Bobby Slowik's first NFL exposure back in 2011, brought Bobby Slowik on as a defensive assistant. Now, Slowik, coming from Michigan Tech, wanting to get into the NFL world, was an offensive guy, didn't want anything to do with the defensive side of the football. Mike Shanahan explained to him that if you really want to be well-versed in offensive football at this level, you first must master the defensive side of the football to understand what defenses are trying to do. Hence, you'll be able to dissect it and pick it apart offensively. So he studied as a defensive assistant for 3 years in Washington from 2011 to 2013. After that, he was an offensive assistant with the San Francisco 49ers. So once he got an opportunity, he was able to then take advantage of that. And he's been a passing game specialist. That opportunity came in 2021 for the San Francisco 49ers, did a great job there, then was promoted to passing game coordinator. So he was setting up the pass game each week and working in concert with the offensive coordinator, Kyle Shanahan, to set up the passing game each week as they set up the game plan. Obviously, that success landed him the opportunity that he's gotten this year in Houston as the offensive coordinator. This has been his lone season, obviously, as the offensive coordinator of the Houston Texans. So in this season, the Texans ranked 12th overall in yards per game and 11th in points per game at 23.4 points per game. Now, understand that this is being done with a rookie quarterback. Also understand that C.J. Stroud missed 2 games this season, so the points per game could have been upped in those 2 games had he played. The yards per game could have been upped in those 2 games that he missed as well. So not saying that it would have made a significant difference, but just take that into consideration. We're going to explore all angles here. We're going and not leave any stone unturned. His claim to fame is currently that he helped wide receiver Nico Collins to a career year, not just a career year this season, where Nico Collins has finally reached his true potential as a receiver in this league, but he shattered all of his career numbers to this point. Nico Collins' career, the first 2 years combined, was eclipsed this season under Bobby Slowik's leadership. And so Nico Collins has burst onto the scene now all of a sudden in year 3 of his career, when the first 2 years really had little to no impact. Also led quarterback C.J. Stroud, rookie quarterback C.J. Stroud, to one of the best rookie seasons by a quarterback in NFL history. And that's the one that stands out to a lot of people. When I talk to a lot of Commander fans that are interested in Bobby Slowik, that want to see this man get the job, their thing is, we're going to ultimately draft a rookie quarterback more likely than not here in Washington. Bobby Slowik has already proven that he is capable of taking a rookie quarterback and getting the most out of him, something that Ben Johnson hasn't been able to showcase because he's had a veteran quarterback in Jared Goff. To that argument, I say touche. There's nothing really to say there in the form of a rebuttal. All I can offer you as we go and we look at both of these guys' resumes is revitalizing the career of Jared Goff is nothing to scoff at. Understand that he was a broken quarterback when he came to Detroit. He had been beat down and beat up by Sean McVay, and mentally he was not in a good place. And his career towards the end of that stint in L.A. was horrendous. And no one, including myself and many of you out there, didn't think there was anything left to Jared Goff when he got to Detroit other than being a placeholder for the next quarterback that they were going to draft eventually. Well, Ben Johnson built him back into the number 1 overall pick that he was coming into the league out of Cal in 2016. And a lot of credit needs to be given to Ben Johnson for doing that. Just as much credit is being given to Bobby Slowik for helping C.J. Stroud put on the performance that he has in his rookie season. And so I think there's a lot to be said for what both of these gentlemen have done. I'm huge on doing it again. That is one of my mantras, is making sure that you do something again so that we know that it wasn't a fluke the first time around. Bobby Slowik has only been an offensive coordinator in the league for 1 year. So there is no do it again for him to showcase unless he gets another opportunity. I think he's going to get a job. Someone's going to hire this guy if he interviews well. Meanwhile, Ben Johnson has done it twice. We can't say that it's a fluke. We know what this guy's capable of. We've seen the numbers that have been put up, and he's done it in multiple seasons. Back-to-back years, the Lions have been among the best offensive football teams in the league, and he built upon what they did last year in a 9-8 season, followed that up with a 12-5 campaign, a home playoff game, a win. And speaking of which, let's take a look at what these two gentlemen have done in the postseason thus far. I want to read this tweet from John Keim real quick about Ben Johnson, and it reads as follows. If Washington hires Ben Johnson, no team ran more from under center than Detroit the past 2 seasons. Led the NFL with 690 runs from under center, key element in the play action game. Detroit attempted 274 play action passes from under center, second most to Minnesota's 328, another disciple of the Shanahan scheme. Another graduate of Shanahan U. Lions had the best 23 touchdowns off play action fake under center. So one of the big knocks on Eric Bieniemy was the lack of under center attempts for Washington. We have a running back that I think is best utilized under center. When he's given a runway to start up, he is a much more effective back. I think play action fake works better under center. Anybody will tell you that there are more options to your offense, more variety, more guessing that the defense has to do when you go under center. Ben Johnson has I think it's a mashup run game. It's not as cut and dry as Bobby Slowik's inside zone, right? You know what you're getting when you are watching a Shanahan disciple at work. You're going to get outside and inside zone. You're going to get some tosses, things of that nature, but it's going to be pretty much inside, outside zone and some tosses, right? Well, with Ben Johnson's run game, it's almost a multiple run game. There's a lot of duo, right, which we know very well from Jay Gruden's run game, and we hated it. But when run effectively, duo can be a dangerous rushing attack. It's a quick hitter, double teams up front with the guards and the centers and the tackles and the guards, depending on how you want to run it. But the duos are the double teams up front, and it's usually quick handoff, right? But they also run power in Detroit. They also run outside and inside zone as well. So, and they run play action off of all of those things. So one of the biggest issues I've had in Washington since the Jay Gruden era is that the play action and the run game never married with one another. They didn't look the same. So defenses didn't really respect it. When you watch Ben Johnson's offense, same with Bobby Slowik, the play action and the run game marry one another. So the defense has to honor it. And that stat particularly there with the run game under center, the play action fake, and also Ben Johnson is one of the most aggressive on first downs with play action fake in the NFL as well. So that's something else to keep in mind. These are all things that Washington fans have been clamoring for probably for the last 5 to 7 years, especially the last 4 under both Eric Bieniemy and with the previous coordinator, Scott Turner. So this is what has been done in the postseason thus far for both offensive coordinators for their respective teams. Bobby Slowik, 10 possessions in the game against the Cleveland Browns, 356 total yards, 8.1 yards per play, 14 first downs, 2 of 3 in the red zone, 31 points versus the number 1 defense with C.J. Stroud at quarterback. We'll come back to that and we'll break that down. Ben Johnson, on the other hand, 8 possessions, 334 total yards, 6.1 yards per play, 22 first downs, 3 for 3 in the red zone, 24 points versus the number 20 defense in the league with Jared Goff at quarterback. So when you look at what Bobby Slowik was able to do, it was a very balanced game. It was dynamic, especially when they got going. He was aided, however, was Bobby Slowik, by some defensive turnovers that were forced by his defense in the second half of this game that blew it open, that gave them some breathing room and some space to operate. However, he was still very effective, and the play calling was dynamite in that game. The two screens that they scored on, one a tight end screen that popped for like 70 yards, and another fake toss tunnel screen to wide receiver Nico Collins, was just magnificently drawn up. And so what you have to take into consideration with what Slowik did was the number one defense in the league this year was the Cleveland Browns, but they were also the worst defense on the road this season. So it was a stark contrast between home and away. Number one scoring defense at home were the Browns. Number 32 in the NFL, dead last at on the road for the Cleveland Browns. They were on the road, and obviously you saw what happened to them. They were absolutely destroyed in the game by Bobby Slowik and the Houston Texans offense. Meanwhile, Ben Johnson was absolutely flawless essentially in the first half, specifically the first 3 drives of the game. 3 drives, 3 touchdowns, 10 plays, 11 plays, 10 plays, 75 yards, 75 yards, 75 yards right down the field. And they were shut down in the second half. You know, and give credit to Raheem Morris and the Rams defense. They made adjustments at halftime, and Ben Johnson and the Lions offense was not as effective as they were in the first half. However, when the game was on the line and the game was in the balance and the Lions needed a first down, 2 first downs to ice the game, Ben Johnson and the offense got 2 first downs to take the knees that were necessary to win the game on offense without giving it back to the Rams offensively. So it was a very impressive performance, wins by both of their respective teams. We'll see them again in the divisional round. We'll see how they fare. But as I've already stated before in the past, I don't think that whatever happens in the outcome of either one of their games is going to sway the decision-making process one way or the other. You can't hurt yourself with being at this point of the process. You can only help your cause. You can't hurt yourself with what you've done. The body of work is already there. It speaks for itself. How you perform in the interview is ultimately going to determine whether you get the job or not, because the evidence is there as to what you're capable of and what they envision you being for this franchise. So the question then becomes, how good of a leader are you? What's your vision? What's your plan for this football team? Whoever goes into that interview room and aces the test, essentially will have the opportunity to be the next head coach of the Washington Commanders, I believe. I think they're going to go on the offensive side of football. And much like Adam Peters, who I thought was the lead candidate going into the process, I think the lead candidate going into this process is Ben Johnson. And if Ben Johnson, he could go out, they could turn it over 7 times and he can get shut out. It's not going to change the way Washington feels. It may change the way you feel. Won't change the way Washington feels about Ben Johnson and what he's capable of. Same can be said for Bobby Slowik. C.J. Stroud could look like a rookie. He could implode on the road at Baltimore. And guess what? Not going to change the way that anybody feels about Bobby Slowik or his ability to call plays or his ability to lead men. If he has those qualities, he could be right there in the mix to be the next head coach of the Washington Commanders. So you've gotten the tail of the tape. What says you? Who is the best option for the Washington Commanders? Is it Ben Johnson, a.k.a. Benny J, or is it Bobby Slowik, a.k.a. Bobby Slime? Leave it down in the comment section. Can't wait to hear your results. That's been the tail of the tape with your man, Louie T. Thank you for joining me on the Command Post. You know what it is. Post up. Take command. I'll see you guys next time. Have a good one. And don't forget to leave a sub and a like if you haven't already done so. Take care. See you next time.
Louie.